because this is a beginner's guide to gardening. Because homegrown tomatoes are so delicious, many people who have small gardens grow tomatoes and nothing else. For this reason, I would like to introduce each topic about gardening with tomatoes in mind. First, watch the demonstration at the beginning of this presentation. Then, take turns transplanting the tiny tomato seeds into your own pot. You can continue to listen to the presentation as you work. You will need to work quickly as only 15 minutes has been allotted for this activity. As you watch the video, on the next slide, pay attention to how the gardener carefully holds each seedling by a leaf rather than by its stem. If the leaf breaks, it won't kill the plant, but if the stem breaks, the plant will die. Also, watch how gently he releases the roots from the soil.
We're going to transplant them today into their own pots. And to do this, I slide my fingers between them, turn the pot upside down and give it a squeeze and a press at the bottom. And the whole soil and root area should come away in one piece. It's a good idea not to water before you transplant, otherwise the soil would be too heavy and the roots will break more easily. Start at the bottom and gently ease the soil away from the roots. Working upwards, the idea is to keep the roots in one piece without breaking them. Hold the seedlings by their seed leaves. Those are the first leaves that grow. Now you can see the root, the whole of the root that is, in one piece. I'll do a couple more. If the soil was wet at this stage, then the roots would most likely break. I filled a 3-inch pot with multi-purpose compost and added some perlite, which helps the soil retain both air and moisture. It's not essential, but it's an added bonus for the roots. You make a hole all the way down to the bottom of the pot with a pencil or dibber, and then drop the roots and the seedling stem into the hole so that the seed leaves are just above soil level. And then press down lightly and give the pot a good tap to remove any large air pockets.
Even with the most fertile soil and the most regular watering, if you don't have enough sun, you will be disappointed in your harvest. Tomatoes need 8 hours of full sun each day to be successful. If grown in the shade, they grow tall and spindly and don't produce blossoms or fruit. Root crops like carrots, parsnips, and potatoes prefer sandy soils. Lettuce, chard, snap beans, and other crops with shallow roots benefit from clay soil's ability to retain moisture. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage often grow better in clay soil than looser loams because their roots enjoy firm anchorage. But the majority of vegetables do well in loamy soil. In Virginia, especially in the Piedmont area where we live, the soil is composed of rocks and roots, cemented together with clay. There is nothing wrong with clay. It retains water, so the soil doesn't dry out so fast. And rocks, if they are small enough, are good for drainage. All we have to do is remove large rocks and roots and mix in a lot of organic matter to turn our clay and rocks into lovely loam. Before you plant, learn what pH soil your plant prefers. Soil acidity determines the availability of mineral nutrients for your vegetables. In alkaline soils, phosphorus, iron, and zinc are limited. In acidic soil, calcium and magnesium are less available to plants. Tomatoes are acid-loving plants, but if the soil is too acid, calcium won't be available for them, and they may develop blossom end rot. If, before you decided to plant tomatoes, the area had lush, healthy grass growing, then you don't need to worry about your soil's pH. However, if moss is beginning to crowd out your grass, not only do you know that the pH of the soil is wrong for tomatoes, but the area isn't getting enough sun and has bad drainage. Tomatoes don't do well with wet feet. To make acid soil more alkaline, mix in limestone, hardwood ash, bone meal, or crushed oyster shells. To make alkaline soil more acidic, mix in sphagnum peat or sulfur. Planting in raised beds helps improve the drainage of your soil, but the soil also dries out faster than in the traditional garden. The traditional garden has no paths. This allows it to be rototilled each year. The raised bed is filled with fluffy loam soil. Walking on it would pack it down, undoing the digging the worms have been doing all year. That is why there are clear paths available between beds. Double digging allows you to skip the rototiller job each year. You double dig your soil just one time. Then the worms do the work for you. Worms eat organic matter, transforming it into high-quality fertilizer. Making your worms happy will make your plants healthy. During the winter, worms burrow down deep. If there is food for them, they will spend a happy winter eating and making babies. The next year, you can add organic mulch on top. The hungry worms come up to eat and then dig back down to add fertilizer to your soil. Letting the worms do the digging not only keeps the worms from getting beat up, it also encourages beneficial microrrhiza. If you were growing tomatoes under ideal conditions, low humidity, deep fertile soil, warm all year round, regular watering, etc., their roots could possibly grow as deep as tree roots. We don't live where we can give tomatoes those conditions. However, the fact that their roots grow deep is something to consider. When I plant a tomato plant, I dig a hole 2 feet in diameter and 2 feet deep, removing rocks and roots. I mix in lots of peat moss, tomato fertilizer, and compost. Tomato plants are heavy feeders. This means that they grow better and produce more if you sprinkle some tomato fertilizer on them every 3 weeks. The important thing to remember, if you decide to put your tomato plant in a cage, is that each cage needs to be tied to a deeply secured stake, so the cage, heavy with its tomato plant, doesn't blow over in the wind. If you decide to stake your tomato plant, you will have to prune it regularly. No matter which support you choose, never touch your tomato plants when they are wet. Also, make sure you spray both stakes and cages with a bleach solution before installing to prevent disease from transferring from year to year. You can grow tomato plants close together if you train them to a single post. The way to do this is to trim off the suckers that grow between the main stem and the branches. Do this every couple of days and tie the main stem to the post using a stretchy fabric, like pantyhose strips. Even if you decide to cage your tomatoes, you will want to trim off some of these suckers. Each one wants to become a tomato plant. As the bottom branches become yellow or spotted, trim them off as well. Your tomato plant doesn't need a lot of leaves to produce tomatoes. The thing about tomato leaves, however, is that they shade the tomatoes from the sun and protect against sun scald. The ones on the bottom of the plant don't help with that, so get rid of them when they start looking old. Since both of these pests are caterpillars, you could use BT, which only kills caterpillars and doesn't bother bees, birds, pets, or humans. If you don't want to use insecticide, you will need to watch for pests and pick them off. Don't assume that all creepy crawlies are bad for plants. Think about ladybugs and spiders. You know, the ones that eat the bad bugs. There are all kinds of beneficial insects out there that help your plants grow better. Some of them, like beneficial nematodes, you can purchase and spray on the soil. Others you can encourage by planting flowers, herbs, or letting a weedy area near your garden grow to create a hiding place for them to hang out. Of course, if you use insecticide, you will probably end up killing the good bugs as well as the bad ones. An easy way to deter snails and slugs is to sprinkle crushed eggshells around the plant. Slugs don't like to crawl over rough edges. With a portable dust devil, you can vacuum up flea beetles. Stink bugs can be a problem on tomatoes as well. Diatomaceous earth will kill slugs, flea beetles, and stink bugs as long as it stays dry. It is safe for people, pets, and won't harm earthworms. But it will kill bees, so use it cautiously. Fungus grows well in our hot, humid climate. It's easier to prevent than to cure. Some of the prevention methods include starting with disease-resistant plants, rotating your crops so you are not starting your plants in disease-infested soil, and watering the soil, not the plant. But you will probably want to use some organic fungicide regularly throughout the season to avoid having your tomato plants become diseased. Each fungicide works a different way to control the fungus. Copper fungicide, for example, kills any fungus with the chemical copper. Serenade contains beneficial bacteria which eat the fungus. These help when used regularly throughout the season as directed. So, let's review. Make sure you plant your tomato plants in full sun. Consider installing raised beds with paths in between. Make your soil light and fluffy by removing roots and large rocks and adding amendments like compost and peat moss. Check the pH of your soil and adjust it to meet the needs of the plants you plan to grow there. Check your garden regularly for insect pests and remove by hand or use an organic insecticide like BT. Remember that it is easier to prevent fungus than to cure it. Buy plants with disease resistance, avoid watering the leaves, and spray with an organic fungicide. That's it. Go to plant and care for your garden. Be happy. It's time now to stop what you're doing and move to the next center.